Hi everyone, this is Mindy Egan for Lawnfawn, and in today's video, I actually have a couple techniques that I want to share with you. The first one is going to be coloring on die cuts with your alcohol markers, and the second one is going to be creating a vellum window. Let's start with creating the vellum window because we need to give this time to dry. So I am using 2 pieces of vellum that are cut to 4¼ by 5½. I also have a piece of a double-sided adhesive sheet cut to the same size, and I'm peeling back one side of it just about halfway down. I'm going to line up the top of that double-sided sheet with the top of my vellum, and then just carefully peel back the rest of the backing and smooth that over. So that way I don't have to worry about any small adhesive spots. The whole thing has adhesive on it. Then I'm going to peel off the backing on that and place my other piece of vellum over the top. Now, one of the reasons I'm doing this is because I need this to be just a little bit more sturdy because I want to add stencil paste over the top. And from experience, if I don't have a good solid layer, the vellum wants to really warp. So that's going to give us some sturdiness. Now, I do have a little bit of adhesive exposed on the edge there. So I'm going to just trim that off with my scissors so I don't risk that sticking on my surface while I'm trying to work. Now I can start stenciling, and I am going to be grabbing the snowflake background. It's actually a 2-piece stencil, but I'm going to grab the one that has the most snowflakes on it. I'm placing that over the top of my vellum. I do not have my vellum secured down to my surface because I was a little worried that anything I try to use would show on the vellum. So I just have that placed down over the top. And then I'm going to spread over the white paste over the open areas of the stencil. Now, I'm being really careful. I'm trying not to push too hard because I don't want my vellum to slip and slide on my work surface. You could use a sticky mat for this if you prefer. I just didn't want to risk getting anything on my vellum. So I'm going to smooth that over with my palette knife and then carefully peel back the stencil. The paste wants to stick with the vellum, so I'm just carefully peeling that back. And then I'm going to set this off on the side to dry. I'm going to wipe up my work surface with a baby wipe and then go and wash my stencil right away. While that's drying, I'm going to work on my die cuts. So I am using the Build a Fox, the Build a Christmas Tree, and the Build a Critter winter accessories. I die cut out all of my pieces for my fox and the Christmas tree out of 80-pound white cardstock, and the winter accessories I did out of the favorite flannel paper pack. Now you may notice I do have 2 pieces of each for the fox. The reason for that is I'm going to layer it together later to again add stability to my image. Now, one thing that's really, really cute about these build critters is this fox in particular can also be used for other critters. So instead of creating a fox, I am going to create a cat. And I really loved how my striped cat turned out in my last video. So I wanted to make this one a striped cat as well. I'm going to be using my Olo markers. I'm using WG3, WG1, and WG0. Now, a lot of times I go over it twice. And one of the things I really love about coloring on die cuts is there are no black lines that you have to worry about. It is just the die cut piece. And I'm coloring the die cuts similar to I would an image, where I'm adding shading around the edges or on one side like the arms, and then blending out to the lightest color. Now on the body, a lot of the body is going to get covered up with the jacket, so I don't need to color all of that in, so you can save some ink there, just really towards the top and towards the bottom that's going to be exposed by that jacket. And then also, of course, the legs and the feet. Now I'm finishing off with the tail, again, adding a dark shade to one side and just blending out to my lightest color. But I do want to come back in and add some stripes. And one of the reasons I kind of waited is I needed that ink to dry a little bit before I added in the stripes. Otherwise, they kind of would have bled a little bit, so I wanted them to stand out. You're not actually going to see the top of the head in my particular project, but I wanted to show you what it would look like if you added the stripes to it. And my stripes are really just flicked with my marker, so kind of creating small little triangles. I do have the backer piece for the ears and the eyes. I did that out of white cardstock using an R0.3 and an R0.2 for the ears, and then the R0.2 for the circle for the nose. I'm using my liquid glue to line my colored piece up over that backer, and now we have some cute little ears and a cute little pink nose. The winter accessories, I did a jacket and a hat and also a scarf. I am using the Favorite Flannel paper pack. This is just the red plaid, but there's a lot of really great colors in there that you could use as well. And I'm ink blending the edges using walnut ink and a small blending brush. Now I can continue with the assembly. So I'm adding my jacket over the body. So just a little bit of the belly is sticking out. And I almost forgot that I had these extra die cut pieces that I can layer behind everything just to give my critter a little bit of stability because the cardstock is still a little bit wet from me doing all the coloring. And I just wanted to have that stability behind my kitty. And I think this is just a really fun way to extend the use of the die is by turning this into a kitty. I'm also thinking there's some way maybe we could turn this into a raccoon. Just some lot of really fun ways to do this. And coloring on the die cuts is another way to just really extend the different looks you can get. I'm using my glue tube and my tweezers to just finish the assembly. I have the white brim of the hat that was die cut out of white cardstock and the little pom pom that goes on top. I honestly had a hard time adding that to the top of the head because I did think the stripes at the top were super cute. But again, I kind of had to complete the outfit because he's going to be in a winter scene. So I wanted to keep him nice and warm. I'm having the arms extended because my kitty is going to be finishing up decorating a Christmas tree on the front of the card, but you can position the arms holding something or however you prefer for your card project. For the eyes, I'm taking a black gel pen and I'm coloring in the eyes except for the very outer edge. I'm kind of leaving a crescent of white. It's really, really cute up close. And I'll show you that in just a minute. And then I'm adding white gel pen highlights to the eyes and also to the edge of the outfit. So there is our super cute little kitty all ready to go. And now I can move on to coloring the Christmas tree. Again, this one is using the Build a Christmas Tree. I die cut out of the 80-pound white cardstock. And I'm going to be using the Olo markers again in YG 8.7, YG 8.5, and YG 8.3. There's 4 pieces to actually build the Christmas tree. I am using the darkest color kind of towards the top, even though I flip my cardstock because that's easier for me to color in that direction. And then I blend out to the lightest color. On some of them, I did start with the lightest at the bottom just to wet the cardstock a little bit and then finish blending out. If you are not feeling very confident about it, give it a minute to dry because I did find I was oversaturating my cardstock or my paper. So if you just kind of walk away from it for a minute, see how it's looking once that color has time to settle into the cardstock and dry, then you could always come back in and either add some more detail to it if you wanted to do flicks like I'm doing, just to give it more of a textured look. Once I finish my last piece here for the tree, there is a piece for the tree trunk. I'm going to be using some browns to do that. And the colors for that one are going to be OR 3.8, OR 3.7, and OR 3.4. I just put the darkest side on one side of, or the darkest color on one side of the tree trunk. The Christmas tree, Build a Christmas tree comes with a base piece to help you line up your tree pieces perfectly. So I'm using that, attaching it with the liquid glue, and then I'll add the tree trunk down at the bottom. The decorations we'll get to in just a little bit. To start building my scene and my window, I have the stitched hillside border die and also the stitched rectangle frames. So I did the white cardstock out of that stitched hillside, and then the stitched rectangle frame, I used that one I'm pointing to there to create a thicker frame. So this is actually the negative piece that's left over. I just really liked how thick that border was. And I created that out of the light brown wood grain cardstock. So here is our vellum panel. It's pretty dry. The paste doesn't take long to dry, and it's really not that warped. So it's really helpful to try and layer your vellum together. So this is how everything is coming together. Before I adhere anything, I want to add some light blue ink to the top of my stitched hillside. You're not going to see it a ton, but I always figure to play more on the safe side. I just ink blended that with a little bit of merman ink. To decorate my Christmas tree, I have some garland pieces here die cut out of gold metallic cardstock that I'm going to have it swooping down across the tree. And then my kitty is going to be holding the last one there. I'm going to trim off any excess. I just attached it with the liquid glue. I'm also going to add some colored bulbs to this. So that is part of the Build a Christmas Tree die. I die cut that out of the red metallic cardstock. And I'm going to go about every other one, just adding a dot of liquid glue, picking that up with my pokey tool and then placing it down. So that has a wax tip on it that makes it nice and easy to pick up those smaller pieces. And then I have a star for the top of my tree that I die cut out of the gold sparkle cardstock. I did go ahead and create my other garland for my kitty to be holding. So I added the red bulbs to that. I added liquid glue to the back, and then I can just place that right over the top of the outstretched arms. To assemble my window, I am placing some liquid glue down just towards the bottom end of my frame and then a little bit on the edges of my snowbank. I'm layering my snowbank behind the window, so that's how that's going to look. Again, trim off any excess that might be overhanging. I would rather have it be too big than too small. And then taking that same frame that I die cut my window out of, and I'm lining that up over the front of a side folding card base. So you want to make sure your card base is opened up. I really just eyeballed it to give me my even margins around the side and then ran that through the die cut machine. So now we created a window that should match our frame out of that wood grain cardstock. I'm going to add a liquid glue to all of those outer edges of the frame. So this is the card front. And then I'm going to place my vellum piece over the top. So I'm going to push that down really well. And then I actually stack a couple MISTIs, or maybe you have a couple books to place over the top and let that sit for a minute or two. So while that is adhering, I am taking some foam tape, trimming it in half to fit around my frame so that I can pop up my frame a little bit on the front of the card. I'll then remove the backing of that foam tape and then place this over the top. So this should line up pretty perfect. I'm kind of looking more at the inside of the frame than I am the outside. I can always trim off any of the excess around the edge of the frame, which is what I needed to do on the card base. But everything else should be lined up pretty perfect. Then I can go ahead and add my Christmas tree. So I'm doing this with thin foam squares for both of the tree and my cat that's going to be on the front of the card. Then the last thing I need to do is add a sentiment to the front. For this, I am using a piece of white cardstock and the black licorice ink, and I'll be using a sentiment from the all the Santa hats. So this says Merry Christmas, and when you cut it out with the coordinating die, it cuts it out as two separate words, which worked perfectly for this because it fit perfectly up in that top right-hand corner. I did die cut out multiples out of white cardstock and stacked the sentiment together so that I could layer that over the top. And then if you want to write a sentiment or a message in the inside, you'll just need to do it kind of down a little bit more on the inside so that the tree and the cat will hide it. Now, in all of that, I did roll up some Post-it tape to put in the inside, just kind of hold that together while I was decorating it. But you can see how well this turns out. We have this beautiful see-through window, which is going to be kind of more noticeable when it's standing up on somebody's mantle. And I think it would also be really pretty if once it stood up, you take like a tea light and kind of tuck it in the inside so it looks like it's glowing in the background. I think that would be a really fun touch to it. So there are two really fun techniques for you, coloring on die cuts and creating that vellum window. I hope you find this inspirational and will give either one of these techniques or both a try. Thanks so much for joining today.